So Jesus is born, he lives, and he lives this life that draws so many people to himself. He performs miracles, but really what draws people to Jesus was his love and what he was teaching. What he was teaching was radically different, and it was so radically different that they crucified him. Jesus dies, he's buried in a tomb. 3 days later, he rises from the dead. He appears to his disciples, and then he ascends back to the Father. After that, the early church starts to take off. People hear about Jesus, they give their life to Jesus, they become disciples. They're making a difference in this world. And so during the next 50 years after Jesus ascended back to the Father, the Roman Empire moved into Israel and they completely destroyed Jerusalem. The city was ground up into fine dust. It was absolutely desolate. And then they destroyed the temple, which many Jews believed the presence of God lived in the temple. And so now, the entire Jewish way of life is destroyed. Everything's in shambles, and God is gone. His presence is gone. The temple is destroyed. And so this happens within the first 50 years after Jesus rose from the dead. 50 years later, this book shows up, and it starts to circulate around to the different churches, and Christians start to read this book. It's the book of Luke. And the book of Luke starts off with a Christmas story, the story about the birth of Jesus. And there's an angel that appears in this story to give messages to two different people, Mary and then Zechariah. And the name Gabriel means something very, very significant. So I got a phone call the other day from a young man who's been living in Lake Charles for a few years. He's away from his family. Well, about 1.5 years ago, his wife died, devastated him. Most of his life, he's battled with depression. After his wife passed away, he started battling with addictions. And he felt really alone, especially this time of the year. He started to visit around to different churches and never really felt accepted. Someone had given him my number because they said maybe he would be accepted at our church. So I gave him a call after he'd called me back. And we had a long discussion about the burdens that he had in his life. And the only thing I could tell him at the end of the day was that God loved him, and to hang in there, to not quit, and to let people love him, maybe to come hang out with us sometime. He said that he would. I hope he does. Not only do I hope he comes to worship with us, but I also hope he hangs in there. I hope he doesn't give up. When Jesus was here and he was teaching his disciples, you don't find them talking much about his birth. It wasn't something they would sit around and discuss. It wasn't something they would sit around and talk about. And like we said earlier, 50 years after Jesus lived and died and rose from the dead, after the Romans had destroyed the city, destroyed Jerusalem, destroyed the temple, the book of Luke shows up. And the book of Luke talks about this birth of Jesus, the Messiah, born of a virgin. And Gabriel was the one who made the announcement. He made the announcement first about John the Baptist to Zechariah and Sarah. Now they came from a very elite line, and that was really what they were concerned about. How is this going to make us look? How is this going to set us up in society? Zechariah wasn't even really sure if he believed the message from the angel. Because of that, he was silenced for a while. He couldn't speak. The angel Gabriel appears to Mary and lets her know that she's going to give birth to a king. Call him Jesus, for he will save us. He will rescue us. Her response to this message from Gabriel was, I want to serve people. I want to serve God. I'm a humble servant, so do with me whatever you want to do. So as a result, she was not silenced. She was magnified. Now the name Gabriel means something very specific, very important, and this is what it means. It means the angel of endurance and perseverance. The early Christians who were receiving this letter, the book of Luke, 50 years after Jesus had left and ascended back to the Father, they had lost everything. When you were a Jew and you became Christian back then, your family had a funeral for you. They treated you as dead to them. You no longer existed. So they had lost their family simply because they loved Jesus. They also lost their city. They also lost the temple because it was destroyed. And it was like the presence of God was gone. And so they start to read this very beautiful story about the birth of the king that they knew, the king that they loved, the king that they followed. And the name of the angel, Gabriel, meant endurance, perseverance. Basically, the message was this: hang in there, don't stop, don't quit, don't give up, keep going, keep following Jesus, keep making a difference in this world, and you will be free. So what about you? Are you okay? What are you dealing with? What's heavy in your life right now? What's exhausting you? Is it something like depression? Is it something like addiction? Have you suffered loss? Are you tired? Are you struggling on the inside? If I could say one thing to you today, it's this: I don't know what your views are of God. I don't know what you've been taught about Jesus. I don't know what you've been taught about God and how God is and who God is. But I believe this with every ounce of my heart. Before God is anything else, God is love. And God loves you. And God doesn't want you to quit. He doesn't want you to stop. He doesn't want you to give up. There's been so many times in my life when I felt like I was at the edge. And the only thing that keeps me going sometimes is this passion and this presence on the inside of me that says, don't stop because I'm with you. Don't quit because I'm with you. I love you. And that voice is the voice of Jesus.